Ah, glorious. All right, we are up and running. Just give it a second. There should be all good to go. We'll give just a sec for people to hop on in. But yeah, here we go. All right, so hello everybody. Welcome to another special episode of Lorebeards. It's so lovely to see you all here today. We've got the one and only Andy Hall back with us to discuss the lore behind Total War Warhammer 3. There's a lot more information that's available this time, and it is obviously super exciting stuff that we are just dying to get into. So we're not going to waste a ton of time. We're not going to waste too much effort, and obviously today we're just going to be focusing on lore discussion, so we're not going to be doing any of the typical segments like Tale of Two Gamers or any of that. So real quick, Mr. Hall, how are you doing? It's been a while.
It has, but it's been a busy time, to be honest. But we're nearly there. It's less than a week to go, I believe.
Yeah, less than a week. I know every time I come on stream, people are losing it. They're barely hanging in there.
Yeah, well, I can't wait for people to finally play it. It's been a passion project. It's the longest project I've ever worked on. For 3.5 years this has been going. So finally, that's longer than most Hollywood blockbuster movies are in production. So to finally get it into people's hands with in less than 6 days, it's great, and I can't wait for people to play it. Hopefully not too many people have spoiled themselves by watching all the streams by you guys and all the other guys, so hopefully people have held themselves back a little bit, so there's still some surprises in the game.
Yeah, self-control, something the internet's so well known for. But yeah, I just feel bad for all the people on Valentine's Day who are gonna have their partners thinking about only 3 more days instead of being there. But all right, so if we're ready, Nathan, we got a whole bunch of questions for our dear guest here. If you want to start us off.
Yeah, so last time you had a cafe and army book. Is there any chance you have something related to Kislev in the form of a book?
We had a trove of information given to us by Games Workshop. It was less in a formal book setting and more just a load of cool sketches by Mark Bedford, and a load of kind of information and documents given to us by their development team when they generously said, we'll refresh Kislev for you, and then gave us this trove of knowledge, and then obviously it was up to us to adapt that into something cool for Warhammer 3.
Cool. So safe to say there's a lot that we can talk about Kislev today, right?
Yeah, we can, and because if there wasn't, that material wouldn't be in the game. So it's there. We can talk about all the material that's in the game, all the material that's alluded to in the game, certainly.
Awesome. Well, we're definitely
there's still stuff that's going to be held back for our our DLC teams. They've got plenty of plans for Kislev. As I've said several times in different podcasts and interviews with media and stuff, the journey is just starting for Warhammer 3. It may be the final game in the trilogy, but the journey is just starting.
Excellent. So even more Kislev in the future. That's great to hear.
To come, definitely.
Though, speaking of Kislev, there's one particular Kislevite we were curious about. And we're from kind of like a lore perspective, do we know if, like, from Games Workshop or maybe the books you've had the chance to look at, so Yuri, the prince, the Ungol prince who ends up becoming the Godslayer, is he like an actual canonical character, this kind of second undivided prince, or I guess because he's kind of like a player insert character and you can customize him to be what you want. Does he actually exist in the lore or the writing, or is he more just kind of an exclusive player insert for Total War Warhammer 3?
Well, I would say he's canon. You know, these things that are happening in Warhammer 3 have been approved by Games Workshop, and so they're part of that IP. Does he exist in any other media at this point? No, he doesn't. As and when Games Workshop gets around to looking at Kislev, maybe. Although I think the Old World game that's coming from is set several hundred years in the past, isn't it?
Mm.
So I don't think he's going to be mentioned there. You never know. I mean, he's certainly a player insert character for later on, and that was his intention. But you know, his journey and what happens to him, you know, is part of the Warhammer lore now.
Okay, great. Man, I'm gonna have to get a group of people and we're gonna have to take bets on if he does show up, what kind of demon prince he would be. Which one they'd end up going with. Nathan, got another question for us?
Yeah, so how exactly did obviously this might be a bit too specific, but how exactly did Bellacor capture Urson?
Yeah, do we have any specifics on that story?
Yeah.
Well, so the reason we used Urson out of all there's many gods in the Warhammer world, as you know. And the reason I wanted to use Urson is because he takes the form of an animal, and I thought it would be very powerful, and we knew we wanted to do something terrible to him.
As you do.
And in my head, I was thinking of Aslan on the stone table in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So how do you get players to empathize with a god? Well, if that god has eyes, ears, and a snout, and takes that anamorphic form, we thought we could get people to kind of empathize with him, and that key moment. I don't know where we are for spoilers at the moment, but that key moment at the end of the prologue, we wanted people to be almost emote, and in fact, thanks to the fantastic script writing by David Lee and Lawrence Tully, cinematic artists, it kind of really dug deep into that script to make sure that was a moment, and I knew it had worked when I showed my wife that movie, and she's not a Warhammer fan by any means. She calls it my toy soldiers. She's been with me for a long time, so she's got used to it. Showed her this movie, and when Yuri makes that decision, she went, "Oh my god!" So I knew if I could get an emotional reaction from my wife, I knew we'd probably hit something there. So that was kind of one of the reasons why Urson was chosen. Also, he's a Kislevian god, and we were doing Kislev, so obviously there was a connection there. But again, kind of circling it back to your original question, Nathan. We thought if Kislev is a god, then it makes sense. If Urson was a bear, it makes sense that maybe he hibernates, and that was kind of. So if he hibernates, what happens to Kislev? Maybe, well, if he thinks it's winter, then it's winter in Kislev, and obviously Kislev is always kind of snowy and wintry and tundra-esque, but it probably gets really cold. But so then what happens when Urson wakes? Maybe that's when the spring of Kislev happens.
Right.
But if he sleeps, then maybe he's vulnerable, and maybe that's why Bellacor chose him. Because how many other gods may have to hibernate? Probably just Urson in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
So maybe if Bellacor needs god blood to break his curse, maybe he saw a weakness there, and maybe that's why he chose Urson as his kind of prey. Now, how he actually kind of fettered that god, that's certainly not we haven't covered. I think when we originally wrote the treatment, it was mainly the fact that if Erskine hibernates, then he's vulnerable, and maybe that's something that Bellacor, using his machinations and his minions, could use to effectively capture him, and then bring him to the Forge of Souls, which he'd kind of taken for his own, because it's kind of neutral ground, one of the couple of neutral ground places in the realm of chaos that he could use. And I get the impression that maybe he came knocking on the Forge of Souls door and somehow subsumed and took it over before even the demons within the Forge of Souls that operated the forges knew what was going on. So that's a very Bellacor thing to do.
That is what he specializes in.
Yeah.
I actually really like.
Basically.
Yeah, I actually really like that. Man, I would love for us to hopefully get that as a short story one day, or at least of like, I could see that of Bellacor, doing his thing and finding out through his machinations where Erskine is hibernating, which should have been a well-guarded secret, but maybe because of Tsar Boris being gone and what have you, the game kind of alludes to that with Tsar Boris being dead, Erskine was not as well protected as he should have been.
Exactly. I think in that my original timeline, I had the kind of the death of Boris was a catalyst for many things, including, like you just said, the making Erskine slightly more vulnerable, and obviously that allowed Catherine to rise to the throne, which was important for us and stuff. I assume we'll probably get to that later. But yeah, with Boris's death. And how intrinsically gods are linked to their followers in the Warhammer world, that would certainly have weakened him and maybe put him into a deeper sleep than normal, or certainly made him more vulnerable, which would be an opportunity for Bellacor to kind of leap on.
Okay. Yeah.
Awesome. Which kind of speaking of grand events and how things tie together, we do have a rather big question, and this may not have an answer. We know this was kind of one of those things that's sort of nebulous, but Warhammer 3 does, and we won't necessarily spoil it for everyone here. People will be seeing it, of course, if they're watching streams starting yesterday. But at the end of Warhammer 3, it's revealed that there is kind of an actual timeline. That Warhammer 3 does take place during a specific moment between the three games. So is there now an official timeline for what the order of Warhammer 1, 2, and 3 is? And if so, can we ask what that order is? Like, especially where does Warhammer 2 take place? Because it definitely fits in, especially because Warhammer 2 has all those epilogues where you have Nakari whispering to the player in the epilogues where he's kind of messing with all the different legendary lords. So can you reveal to us what that order may be, if you had to give one?
Okay, if I had to.
If you had to. It doesn't have to. No, this doesn't have to be 100% concrete, but
I don't give any years because it is all a bit fuzzy around there.
Yeah, very fuzzy. Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of deliberately so. I mean, we don't want players to think too much about this. It's not a history game. We'll leave that to the guys doing Rogue 2.
All that history nonsense, ma'am.
I love it. But so we want to keep it slightly fuzzy. But I personally, I think the order of events is the very first CGI trailer, the Warhammer 1 announcement trailer. We see the advisor is a white wizard and he becomes corrupted by the Tome of Fates.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And you may go, but that book looks different to the Tome of Fates in there. But again, I kind of covered that. There's a lore blurb in there that kind of explains that as a Zentian book, it will take different forms at different times.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, I wish I had this in front of me. I think he goes into he's whisked away to do Zentian things for an unknown amount of time before returning to the Empire, and then we see him at the Grand Observatory in those very first teasers for Warhammer 3. We then see him go. We then see him in the Warhammer 3 CGI trailer, walking into the Zarina's tent. And I think from there he makes his way north, and then we see him at the start of Warhammer 3, finding out about Yuri, and then Warhammer 3 happens, and then if you follow that through, you'll know what happens and why he looks younger than he probably does in Warhammer 1 and Warhammer 2. How those two interlock, I think Warhammer 2 is slightly before Warhammer 1.
Okay, great. Oh, that's awesome. So this is actually just a random additional question, but do y'all have like a internal name, or is there any kind of name for the advisor? Or has he always just been the advisor? Does he kind of have like does he have like a little name or something?
I played him giving him a name, but we kind of like him as the advisor.
It does. It's very mysterious. It's very enigmatic.
Revealing the name of the Doctor in Doctor Who, you kind of don't want to. It kind of lessens that as a character, and I think he's the advisor. So he's slightly, he's a slight enigma. Although obviously, as the game's gone, we've kind of started to reveal a bit more about him, and I think what I really enjoyed about Warhammer 3 is we see him interact with the actual lords a bit more, and we see how he approaches those lords. And so with Warhammer 1, we just kind of took it that he will approach Grimgor or someone, and Grimgor will listen to this weird old white man. But with Warhammer 3, we kind of, as you've seen in those intro movies, we thought we wanted to show that interaction. How would the advisor approach Scarbrand, or how would he approach Nakari even, and not just be utterly killed or wiped away as insignificant? So he has his ways and means to do it.
Oh, and
I think any approaches, and I did a little bit about it in the Prince of Altdorf novel, small story a while back. There seems to be an aura about him that they should at least listen to him before they kill him.
Yeah.
And that gives him his chance to kind of whisper his secrets or convince them. So I think the book empowers him slightly, and maybe that's the influence of Tzeentch on him to gives him enough of a leeway to allow him to get his sales patter out before even Scarbrand will just cut him down. Sorry, I overtalked you there.
No, you're great. Yeah, please overtalk me always. They get enough of me. Nobody cares about me. Yeah, that's awesome. I love that, and I just gotta say, y'all did an incredible job with the cinematics, especially at the starts of the campaigns. Those are, oh god, like I know this would be torture, but y'all should do those for every legendary lord. Just can y'all go back and just do everybody that style?
It would be nice.
Just just let us pile a mountain on your back there.
Yeah, they're expensive assets to create.
Yeah.
But also, you've got to make sure you got the talent in the studio to be able to do that. And definitely we have with our cinematics team, led by Lawrence, and me, him, and David, who did loads of the actual day-to-day grind of creating those movies. We get into what we used to call the fishbowl, which is one of our meeting rooms in the studio, in those crazy pre-pandemic days when you would just go to the studio, and we'd spend hours in there just knocking out script drafts and talking to each other and going, what about this, what about that, what about this? But that's how these creative ideas get crafted. A lot of hard work. But yeah, that's just writing the scripts. But then you need the artists as well. And one of our artists, in-house artists, Ignacio, who did loads of those drawings, and we used loads of freelancers too. They just all knocked it out of the park. It's an amazing feat, and it's one of the things I'm most proud of in Warhammer 3. Even though my bit, to be honest, was just at the start. But they're fantastic, and they seem to have gone down really well, and I'm really glad.
Yeah,
And
they're
going
yeah.
back and doing them all.
Yeah.
It's a big undertaking.
I'll just have to dream about it. Nathan, carry us forwards.
Yeah, so we're going to circle back to Kislev because we have a lot of Kislevite questions. Just a question: why aren't the other Kislevite gods getting involved? Like, it's not a big pantheon and so on, but wouldn't they be a bit like the godheads missing? Like, yes, they're involved with the prayer mechanics and so on, but you'd think they'd be a bit more active if Ursun's disappeared. You know what I mean?
You would, wouldn't you? Yeah. There's something that's coming out that may address that.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Right. That makes me happy, at least. Right, cool. I thought like they'd be forgotten because there are some cool gods, like Daz and Tor and so on.
They're in the game as invocations. We haven't ignored those guys at all.
So something I'm probably just going to throw out into the void here real quick is that for anyone listening, we're going to be focusing very heavily on lore today. So if there are moments where he says next question, we're just going to do next question. So that was kind of code for next question. So we look forward to learning more about that. So Nathan, next question.
Right. Where are we here? Well, we're going to have to skip the next one, aren't we?
Oh, I'll ask it, but I'll just rephrase it a little differently. So, one thing that we loved about the game is kind of that new lore for Ursun of that when he's hibernating, Kislev is kind of hibernating and dealing with winter. He wakes up and we see in the prologue cinematic he literally roars the winter away. But one thing that we just wanted to ask about and we're just kind of curious about is that I think in the older lore. That was kind of traditionally Daz's role as the god of the sun, that he would sort of, bring around the sun again, from the Kislevites' perspective as they got closer to the sun in their natural orbit. And so for them, winter would end with Daz being the one who kind of thawed it out. So that seems to be a small retcon, though I think it's a great retcon. Do we have any kind of info then on like if that is the case for Daz, what has his role changed? And if so, can you tell us a little bit more about like what it is he's bigger on now? What he's kind of responsible for?
I think he is the god of the sun and stuff, and I think he still has a part to play in that. But if the clouds are there blocking the sun, it was Ursun's job to roar and bring those clouds away. And I kind of there's in another thing that may be coming, I kind of explained that maybe the roar is not a literal roar, but it's a massive storm that kind of breaks those winter, turns the snows to rain, and then once that has dissipated, then the sun will come, and that will be Dash's role.
So what you're saying is it sounds like every single one of the Kislevite gods is involved. Like, it sounds like it's kind of a collaborative effort.
Yeah, I would certainly say so, but Ursun is the start of that process.
Right, so with him gone, it just can't get off the ground.
Obviously, we needed to make Ursun the start of that process, so because he's missing, that process can't start, and so Kislev is then in peril, and so you are motivated, or Kislev is motivated to find him.
That is super interesting. Okay, so I wonder what the other three are up to.
And it's
all
quite complicated.
Yeah, it's great. No, I think it's great. I genuinely do. Speaking of exciting things, Nathan, what you got for us, my dude?
So there is one particular loading screen which has kind of struck out to us recently, which seems to hint at a name change for a very old character used to be known as Baba Yaga to Mother Ostankia. Is there any word on her? Is she still a hag? Is there still a house with chicken legs?
If you can tell us anything about her, we'll take it. We don't even care. It could whatever little scraps we can get.
Because she's in a loading screen. Yes. She's out there.
Okay, good.
Again, a certain asset that will be dropping soon. may or may not talk about her a bit.
Cool.
But okay. So what I can do is talk about on a more kind of meta
like
level.
any like
Yeah.
myths or stories in the lore that the Kislevites tell about her. That would be great.
Warhammer is obviously full of these archetypes. There's my bunny.
I was about to say we got a bunny.
Yeah, he's our new family member.
All right, we got my dad, we got my dog, Nathan's cats, Andy Hall's bunnies. We're going here.
Someone bring a budgie and we're good.
Yep.
Yeah, he was called Boris until yesterday. Then he nipped me on the finger, so now he's called Bellacor, and he seems to like that better.
Oh man, he was corrupted. How sad.
He's got corrupted with human blood now. Which makes him even more like the Holy Grail rabbit, doesn't it? Anyway. I've lost my thread. What were we talking about?
Do we know any like so not like, oh, this is what you would see, but can you tell us like any like in-game in lore myths or rumors about this Mother Ostankia character?
Yeah, I mean, no. Because we're going to cover that.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
But what I could talk about is how Warhammer takes these kind of archetypes and rarely just does a copy and paste from the real world. But always makes a Warhammer twist in it. So I can tell you that Baba Yaga isn't in Warhammer anymore.
Okay.
Because that was it was too on the nose.
Yeah, two. Yeah. Mm.
It was first mentioned, written by a good friend of mine, Thomas Pirin, in a Citadel journal, and I think at that point, he was just taking all this cool lore from where he lived in Finland, and obviously Russia's very close there, taking all that cool stuff and bringing it down. But kind of what the next level is, you take those archetypes and you twist them and make them Warhammer. And that Baba Yaga stuff it's too on the nose. So is there an archetype of a kind of a hag that lives in the woods that is feared but may also be a protector of that very land? Yes, there is that archetype, but it's now not Baba Yaga, it's Mother Ostankia, and you'll probably learn more about her. And she's certainly mentioned, certainly coming soon. But
Awesome.
More time.
That's great.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, someone probably very close to the I must say I'm so pleased about how much Ungol stuff there is when you're playing through the game. Like, with Kostalton literally starts his campaign almost going on an ethnic cleansing of the poor guys. So I'm very, very interested to see when we're gonna how we're gonna handle when we start getting into more of their figures, which I imagine she's one of. But moving forward. Oh, go ahead.
I'll let you go. I was going to do a tangent, but
no, we want your tangents.
Go on. We want them.
Okay, so we have that dichotomy, and the Ungles versus the Gospodars. And I talked about this a little bit the other day with Italian Spartacus. But obviously, that's quite a niche part of Kislev lore, which in itself is a niche race within Warhammer lore. And, all of us three here, we are immersed in that Warhammer lore, and we've grown up with it. And I'm sure if there's anyone watching, I don't know. But the many people that are watching now, they are probably also very immersed in the Warhammer lore. But to bring this game to the millions of people that are coming to play it, they probably don't know what a Gospodar and an Ungol is. And so we wanted something that they could instantly see is interesting about Kislev. We still wanted that dichotomy, but that people would click with instantly and go, "Oh, I get it." So again, always in conjunction with Games Workshop. In fact, they brought that to us. We have this kind of church versus state kind of situation going on. So again, that's a hook that's kind of easy to see and easy to perceive, and kind of get a buy-in quite quickly. But that's not to say that that more subtle kind of cool aspect of Kislev, like the Gospodars and the Ungols, that are, as you've already said, it's still there, and it's still part of that IP, that flavour, and you'll see it in the text and Yuri's story, and no doubt in the future we'll maybe even do a deeper dive on that, because then we've got those players, and they kind of, as most people do with Warhammer, they kind of learn it by osmosis, by playing these games, by reading the army books, by just being around other nerds.
Yeah.
And that's how they kind of learn and get deeper into the world. So at that point, when we do something, that's maybe Ungol themed or Gospodar themed, there'll be that buy-in, rather than kind of doing it from day one, and a lot of people going, what's this about? What's the difference?
And I think the game is set up to support that very nicely, because I mean it definitely is something you'll notice playing Kislev. You just kind of have these constant threads popping up about the Ungols, and we also kind of see that with the Ropesmen as well, being kind of the third prominent culture that seems to be there. Which I was speaking with Nathan about it, because Nathan knows more about the older lore than I do. And the Ropesmen were kind of like, they existed, but they were a very, very minor footnote, almost, even compared to, like, they were even more minor than that divide between the Ungols and the Gospodars, and they seem to be kind of coming back a little bit, seeing as they are the ones that start off in control of Prague.
That's just a case of as casting a net wide, and Mark Sinclair, a campaign designer, will come to me and goes, I need X number of factions. So I'd go on the hunt, make sure we got the factions, go, oh, Ropesmen are cool, and I can link them to Prague, and so
great.
Yeah, I found that quite exciting when I was playing. I saw the Ropesman name. I was like, oh wow, this is a nice throwback,
Exactly, it's a nice throwback. Whether it's not necessarily fundamental to the game itself, but I try and get, as I've said to you guys before, I try and get as many Easter eggs into the game as possible.
Awesome. Speaking of throwbacks, Nathan, you got a more monstrous themed question for us.
Yeah, so there's a lot of older Kislevite lore, which we had mention of loads of different monsters and so on, like the bat-like frost fiends, the avalanche causing Indrika, the firebirds of Dars. Do they still exist in lore, or because obviously things change,
Yeah. I don't know, to be honest. The good thing about Warhammer is that stuff can go away, and sometimes it's never seen again. Other times, another designer will just bring it out the drawer and say, they're here, and they've always been here. We just didn't mention them.
That's how the entirety of Warhammer 3 feels to me right now. Okay, so so we have some MIA monsters, but we'll have to see if they are in creatures. We shouldn't, maybe monsters is the right word, creatures. We'll have to keep an eye out for them in the future.
Absolutely.
Next question, Nathan. Oh, this one's good. I like this one.
Wait, let me just find it there. God, I'm blind today. The letter one, right?
Yeah, the letter one.
We're going down for the list there. So the letter in the intro trailer seems to imply that Yuri is Catherine's former lover. Is this correct? And will this get expanded upon? If so?
Yeah, and so when we say intro trailer, for anyone listening, we mean the announcement. Because you can read that letter if you freeze frame it, you can actually read the letter on her desk, and it does seem to imply there was an interesting relationship between the queen and her Ungol prince. So can you tell us anything, any confirmations, any dirty drama that you can let us in on that?
Yes and yes.
So they were lovers. Okay.
And again, that thing may be coming. That thing may be cleared up sooner rather than later.
Oh. Man, if you give us a short story, about her finding out what he's turned into, I would love that so much.
Yeah, that would be cool.
That's some S tier drama that I need in my life.
Well, we'll see about that. But that letter itself, it's I worked with one of our brand managers to do it, and they were like, will they figure this out quickly? I was like, no, taken months. It's like day 3, YouTube videos. This is what the letter says. And I think someone got it absolutely bang on. And I was like,
I think I sent you a Twitter email about it.
Because there's a couple of secret Easter eggs in some of the earlier Warhammer 2 trailers, which I think to this day haven't still been figured out.
Don't say that. Then I gotta like do stuff. Don't say that.
Waste time now. But yeah, I was expecting that to take a bit longer, but yeah, I think one person I saw absolutely got it, nailed it. I was like, ooh. But it seemed to go away again. But you know, I love doing stuff like that. So.
Well, and it was cool because for anyone that doesn't know, Yuri, a Yuri who is an Ungol that falls to chaos is actually an adventure hook from Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 2nd Edition, way back. I think it was an adventure hook on one of the careers that appeared in the Ice Realm of Kislev book or something. So it was really cool to see that story taken, but it was incredibly well adapted to fit Warhammer 3 and changed a lot. Because the original Yuri was, I think, just like a horse guy. Whereas we get Prince Yuri here, and he doesn't just fall to chaos, but he goes all the way to a demon prince. But it was just such a cool thing to get to see that evolution.
Yeah, and you know, those things are there to start those speculations, and yeah, I totally. It's fun watching all that stuff unravel and people think and go off on tangents on themselves and stuff. It's cool. We love it.
All right, great. So for the next question, so a popular ask, and it's something that is close to my heart as well, is that when Katerin, we were originally introduced to her back in the day in tabletop. One of the things that was kind of famous for her, granted, it wasn't part of her model. It was something you'd have to kind of kit bash yourself because GW liked to give us like mounts or creatures, and you just kind of had to figure it out back in the day. Unlike those spoiled kids nowadays who get an actual mini for all their rules. Is that Katerin was known to have kind of like a sled, kind of like the original myth of the Ice Queen from, I think it's Norwegian myth or Eastern European, but that Ice Queen having a sled, and Katerin had a similar one pulled by like reindeer or Indrika, which are kind of like the reindeer of the Warhammer world. Is there any particular reason why we saw her kind of just ending up with a bear? Like, she does have a unique bear mount that looks very nice. But is there kind of any reason, does she still have the sled? It just wasn't brought into the game for various reasons? Or is the sled just kind of one of those things that just hasn't made it into the modern setting?
I don't think she still has the sled. So, you know, I'm going to be absolutely truthful here. I think we took our eye off the ball there. And I think, so one of the things about being in a studio environment, and certainly one of my jobs, you know, is walking around, you know, I'll see one of the artists got something up, I'll go over and go, that's cool, oh, could you do that? And you know, and when I first joined the studio, I was known as the more skulls guy. And the artist, oh, Andy's coming. And I go, more skulls. And I think one of the ways the pandemic's kind of affected us, you know, when we was all brought back into to our own, you know, working from home, you lose a bit of that collaboration. And I think if we'd probably been in the studio all this time, I'd like to think I'd have gone, Catherine needs a sledge, and maybe we would have got it in. There's been there's a couple of areas where the pandemic's kind of, not helped the situation. The fact that plague bearers don't count is one of my bugbears. And that's purely because we weren't allowed more than 1 or 2 people in the sound booths.
I see.
Nice.
COVID regulations. So we always used, if we need kind of crowd chants and stuff, we at CA, it's very collaborative. It's a great atmosphere. And one of the audio engineers would go, we need 10, 15 people in the sound booth to do some chaos screams, and everyone would pile in, and it'd be great fun. We obviously couldn't do that in a pandemic situation, so we've lost a couple of those areas. And the one that always gets me is the fact that the plague bearers aren't counting.
Well, maybe if we're lucky, as things continue towards normalcy in the world, and maybe if they do something for more Nurgle stuff in the future, we can get our counting guys as a patched in, and maybe even Caterin Sled one day in the future. Crazier things have happened in this game. Everyone, of course, remembers the infamous Albrecht Trident. For those who played Warhammer 1, the Albrecht Trident was a pretty hilarious series of events. But so maybe the sled will be our Warhammer 3 Trident.
And maybe we'll get it in. I hope being candid is a cool thing for you guys. And you're not pre-orders, and therefore I will be fired. Perfect. Although I would say Warhammer 3 is about as perfect as a game as you can get. There's Bellacor. There he is.
It's
off to cause trouble and become a shadow god somewhere.
Oh, I'm sure he's up to machinations. Nathan, onwards and upwards.
No, I think you should have this one because this is a very passionate one for you.
Oh, okay, well then you can have the next few. Okay, gotcha. So all right, there's a character in Kislev lore that I really love. Like when they announced Kislev, I think it was the first major video I did on it, which is a character that's known as the Ancient Widow, who's supposedly this mysterious true benefactor of Kislev. Like, she is Kislev. She's this ancient, like, there's so little about her, but we know that there's this mysterious shriveled corpse woman hidden somewhere in the lands of Kislev, which is where ice magic comes from. It's where the lore of the hags comes from, and that she is the power of the land itself. She's kind of like the sentience behind it. And there's an event that appears in game that really caught my attention, where you can get a dilemma where this Ungol will come up and be like, oh, the ground cracked open, and I heard this feminine voice talking to me from this opening in the earth, and she offered me a boon, and all the Gospodars are like, this dude's crazy, get this guy out of here. But you get to pick something. And I was curious if you could confirm for us, does the Ancient Widow still exist? Is she still kind of lurking in the shadows as one of the guardians of Kislev?
See, we don't mention the Ancient Widow in the game anywhere, actually. But I refer back to an earlier question where, sometimes we rest these concepts and sometimes they come back. I think the motherland concept is kind of as substituted the Ancient Widow. Now, that's not to say that maybe at a later date we'll reveal the motherland, and the Ancient Widow are kind of entwined, and that we hint. Certainly, that event kind of hints that there may be something there. But as of this moment, we don't kind of talk about the Ancient Widow. It's not really mentioned.
Okay,
but
great.
Not something. I'm certainly not ruling it out. Its existence.
Gotcha.
At the moment, the mother. It's the motherland that's invoked rather than the Ancient Widow.
Gotcha.
Now,
I am
the same concepts. I think that's something that we'll look at and develop further down the road.
Great. I cannot wait to see that explored. All right, Nathan, you could finish up all the Kislev questions that we got.
There's quite a few. Okay, so next one we've got here is, Are there any other interesting named characters in Kislev, even if we can't have some specifics, but some tidbits, which we've seen some hints in events and so on, but maybe a little bit more context, if possible, of course?
Yeah, like and we just mean like archetypes, or if you have names or little tidbits about them, we'd love to hear them. But kind of like
Yeah.
when we talked about Cathay in the last time we had you on Lorebeards, we talked about some like kind of specialish character type people that are running around. Do we have any of that kind of info for Kislev?
Well, we talk about the Golden Knight in the game, Narieshka. She's like the champion of the Tsar or the Tsarina.
So she's kind of like the Kurt Helborg to Franz she is to Katerin.
More like the Ludwig.
Oh, okay,
I think.
more Schwarzhelm.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
And yeah, and it's normally a male role. And I'm just referencing stuff that we've already kind of talked about in the game here.
Yeah.
And the current one though is the daughter of the last one, Narieska, who's said to be, an even more prominent fighter than the father, and that each Golden Knight has a bespoke piece of armor that is forged for them as part of their gift, and that it's imbued. And legend says that it's imbued with magical properties. This is Warhammer, so that's pretty certain, isn't it?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, that it's blessed by both the Tsarina and the Cult of Ursun. So she's one of the few characters that will fuse together the church and the state, and will serve both.
Oh, very cool. Awesome. Is there anybody else out there that are kind of are there any like rumors about? So we've kind of we've heard about this knight. We've heard about we've kind of talked about Mother Ostenkia and stuff like that. Is there anyone else that's kind of like important to know that people should have on their radars of like as Kislev continues to evolve with Games Workshop, people who might be kind of appearing for lore people who kind of want to look out for recognizable faces?
I don't want to spoil all the surprises for our DLC team, but new cool characters is certainly being worked on. I don't think we've talked about any others just yet.
Okay, great, awesome.
It's all to come.
Onwards.
Cool. So older lore implied very heavily that Prague had a resting deity under a glass coffin. Does she still remain? Is she there?
I'll file that under the Ancient Widow thing, in that I don't think we specifically talk about her.
Hmm.
We know that's in that Realm of the Ice Queen role playing book.
Yeah.
But we don't specifically mention that at the moment.
Yeah.
Will we, at a future point, because it's a long roadmap, return to that concept? It's certainly possible. But
Yeah, because she was quite curious.
Deny.
Right. So before we jump into the next, I've got a little minor question. So there was one sentence in lore way back in the day. I can't remember what exact book it was, but Katerin had siblings.
Oh yeah.
Does she still have siblings?
I don't think she does.
Also, I highly doubt this is written anywhere, because Games Workshop's kind of notorious for leaving little spots just for mystery and enigma. Do we know anything about Boris's wife and Katerin's mother? Like what happened to her, or who she was, or anything like that?
I don't know. Sorry, it's been these last couple of questions have been a bit boring.
No, you're all good. You are all good.
No, I actually think it makes her a stronger character if she's an only child. I think if she's got brothers and stuff, then you've got to go, well, why is she taking the throne? Is it by dint of being the eldest, or what? So I actually like that she's an only child. So I don't think she's got brothers or sisters. Again, may change. As for her mum, no, we haven't really covered that, to be fair. Again, it kind of makes her stronger I think, if and it's very Kislevian, and if she's kind of forged by things that haven't gone her way in her life. So, and if I was kind of writing her bio right now, I would probably say, she probably lost her mother young, and then she lost her father, as it happens.
Oh yeah.
And therefore she's kind of had to become this strong-willed woman, without the approach of parents or siblings.
Yeah, and it does seem that because the only stories we kind of have that seem to hint towards is that, of course, we have that story of how Boris met Erskine when he kind of ran off into the woods like a hoodlum to go fight a bear, so he could go through the rites of initiation to be a priest. And Katerin was just a kid, but because they didn't know where Boris was, they had to start preparing her to be Tsarina, because they were like, oh, is Boris dead? So even at that young age, she didn't have her mom around, so it seems like she died very, very young. But all right, let's move on. Yeah, well, it's like, I can't. What's more Kislevite and than growing up without the warmth of having your mom around? All right, so we're gonna actually hit a couple things with Cathay now. And okay, there's a question I gotta ask. I have to ask this. So with how things are right now, people are able to kind of see the ends of campaigns and stuff now. And there's only one campaign ending that I have to ask about from a lore standpoint, which is that, so in Cathay, obviously their campaign revolves very heavily around Shinzu, who is the Dragon of Light. She is seems like probably one of the younger dragon kids, considering that she's like the bringer of hope and all this stuff. But in the game, we kind of end on a cliffhanger with Shinzu, which is that you don't really find her at the end of the campaign. You get more of like Erskine confirms that she's alive and says, "Oh, go look for her here." So could you share any details with us about like what kind of happened to Shinzu and like where she may be? Is there any information that is not revealed necessarily in the game that you could tell us about Shinzu, why she went north of Norska, and where the Cathayans may be looking for her?
Well, I mean, they got what they wanted from Erskine,
right?
They got that next part of the puzzle, or the treasure hunt, so to speak, or so they know where, where in the Norskan mountains, or the area, kind of that big swath of area north of Kislev that she is. So they're gonna, they're heading in that direction. But it's not like we just turn up to this cave, move a bit of dirt, and she's going to be there.
Right.
She's hidden, or for a reason, or lost. And if she is, it's going to be deep under the mountains. I mean, other than what's already in the game, I don't want to speculate, because I talked about a concept with Italian Spartacus the other day called the door ajar.
Right, you mentioned this on the last time we had you on.
Yeah, I guess it's one of my things, because it's one of the things with Rick Priestley and Jervis and stuff when I was at GW, and it's about leaving that door, and with Shinzu, we're leaving that door ajar. We're giving the Cathayans a kind of happy ending's the wrong word, a fulfilling ending, but we're also leaving the door ajar for us to either expand on that story, or let Games Workshop expand on that story,
right?
Because they're gracious enough to kind of let us use one of the few kind of missing or unaccounted for dragon children as one of our big motivators for that story. And I really like that story in the concept that he's immediately the advisor's immediately wrong-footed when he goes, as I'm sure you guys have seen that.
Right. In the intro.
He's going almost a bit blasé, thinking, I'll just offer them the power of a god. What what person can't refuse that? And they're like, no, you're not here for that reason. You're here to help us. And it's almost like, yeah, we know what you are, but you're here to help us anyway, kind of thing.
Well, great.
Which I really like. So he felt a bit wrong-footed, probably slightly more wrong-footed with them than if he visits, one of the demons, even Kairos. They seem to be on top of him better than him.
Can I diverge for something now that he's mentioned something that I've had this in my head for a while?
Oh.
We know what you are. Now, this is something that comes into question, like, say, for example, when Boris speaks to the advisor.
Oh yeah, he kind of leads with that, like, I know what you are, but let's get to it.
Well, I think in those cases, when he's referring to that, it's like, spoilers from Warhammer 1, we know what the advisor's ultimate fate is. We know he's what he is. He was sent to this world to basically advise all these different warlords to create war to serve Tzeentch. And a vast majority of those warlords and legendary lords come to it from purely how can you serve me and further my agendas. But there are certain characters like Boris, who's crossed the veil. I get the feeling he knows exactly what that advisor is. He knows he's a Tzeentchian servant. He doesn't care anyway. Because to him, what's most important is saving his bear god, who's in literal Warhammer hell, dying. So he's like, yeah, I know you're a servant of Tzeentch, but I know that book. I need you to use that book to get me there anyway. So I know what you are, and again, I think the Caffeine Lords are a bit like that as well. We know what you are, but you're going to serve us anyway.
Yeah, you're useful, so you get to live for a minute.
And again, I think that all feeds into the greyness of Warhammer as well. There are no ultimate good guys here, or
you got to use what you got. It's a dangerous world.
Yeah,
out for their own kind of interests. Whether that interest is saving a bear god to free their nation.
All right,
it's ultimately a good thing.
Great, Nathan, you got the next one for us?
Yeah, the Moon Empress and Dragon Emperor were working on something which would be revealed at a later date. Can we have some more information about that, or we're still waiting for that date to arrive?
This is a follow-up from the last time we talked.
Warhammer Leap Year.
They have a plan that they're working on. Yeah, I know what that is. Games Workshop knows what that is, but I'm not going to reveal that now.
Dang, not yet. Okay.
That's not for me to reveal. That's for the good folks at Games Workshop, as and when they
Games Workshop, give me my dang army book. Okay, great. So will be revealed in the future. I'm so excited to learn about that. I can't wait to make fun of them for not learning from the old ones, but we'll see what happens. So okay, I've got a big question here, which is so something that the audience has had a lot of fun speculating about. I've had a lot of fun speculating about. Is that we kind of know that among the Dragon Kids, the 9 as they're known, 8 of them are associated with one of the Winds of Magic, and then there's one kind of unaligned kiddo, or maybe he's all of them combined. Who knows? Just through kind of deducing and various things, kind of narrowed it down to a couple of stragglers, and I was wondering if you'd be able to kind of fill these in. Could you tell us so based on kind of like Chinese mythology and stuff, it seems that Yin Yin, the Dragon of the East, seems to be the Dragon of Beasts. I don't know if or the Dragon of Wood, I guess it would be. I don't know if you're able to confirm that. And is Yuan Bo, the Jade Dragon, do we know if he is the unaligned kid, or it seems that some of his titles refer to him as being the Heavens Dragon?
Well, he's master of the meteor winds, so that should tell you. Yeah.
Okay, so he's the Heavens Dragon.
Yeah. I think that I haven't got my cafe book in front of me. Maybe in here.
Just showing off that he has a book, right?
I know.
I've got the book, you don't.
Yeah, maybe over there, but I don't want to pull it out and reveal a cover that you guys probably.
Let me see that. Let me see that. Okay, so okay, knowing that he's the Heavens Dragon kind of lines everything else up, I think. Because Yin Yang, I feel very confident Yin Yang is beast due to the association of like the actual mythological creature in China of the East. It has to do with the element of wood, which we've spoken about, that each of the elemental winds of Cathay, of like stone, wood, metal, fire, spirit, and all that stuff, seem to have direct correlations with the winds of magic. So would it be safe to say then that the unaligned kiddo, we know the spirit dragon is in the Cathayan underworld up to something. The light dragon Shinzu has vanished in the north. So that seems to pretty much just leave the shadow dragon and the unaligned dragon as kind of the only really mysterious missing ones, which is super exciting.
Yep. That was all your speculation.
Hey, but I feel confident in that speculation now. And at least until I get my hands on that book. Which kind of a follow-up to that, and you might not be able to answer this without the book on hand, and they might not have even written this. I guess this would be a good question if you've read it just to know it exists. Do all of the Dragon Kids have official names? Or are some of them kind of in the soul lost that they're almost like kind of like 40k Lost Primarch level where we don't know anything about them? Because like Shinzu, we obviously were like, oh, okay, so the light dragon's name is Shinzu, and the spirit dragon is talked about a ton in Warhammer 3. She even kind of comes up in the finale with Urson. She plays a large role in that, and whenever you summon ancestral warriors, you literally see the spirit dragon do this little portal thing, and all the dead guys come walking out to join you. Do we know any of the other? So that's 3 dragons whose names we don't know. Do they have official names, or has Games Workshop kind of left that nebulous?
That's deliberately been left nebulous. Again, I'll refer to the kind of the Dora Jar concept, and this is a classic example of that concept. You know, you have 5 dragons already. You established the fact that 5 are written, and you know, a designer could have left it there, but a good designer knows, you know, but we'll say there's 4 out there already, for future kind of use, but deliberately don't name them, etc. And then we rather greedily, almost immediately went, "Can we use one of those?" Yes. And they were really good with that. So you're already down to 3. But no, they're not named, and deliberately so. So that, you know, as and when they want to come and develop them, they're not kind of blocked in or already in a corner.
Well, and at least such a fun room for speculation. Like, I know I've already developed a headcanon for every single Dragon Kid. Like, I'm already like, as far as I'm concerned, one of them got killed and ate by the ogres, which is why they threw the meteor at him. One of them turned into a chaos dragon, Archaon killed it and got the Ishirian, and the rest are accounted for at that point. So, like, I'm done. I'm good.
Well, cool origins, and I like that. But again, you said that, not me.
Yeah, I said that. Yeah. Games Workshop, if you want to pay me, I will send you my address. You can use those ideas free of charge. I won't charge royalties. Like, you can have it.
It's just curious, though, because considering the fact that obviously, for people who aren't aware, this is a similar system done in Warhammer 40,000 with 2 Lost Primarchs, as Sotek said. But we know nothing, 30 years later?
What?
I just hope that I'm still alive,
we
right?
know nothing yet.
That's because the mystery is stronger than the reveal. And, you know, a lot of great IPs have that, and certainly 40k, you know, the concept of the mystery is more powerful than probably what the truth is. I can't talk to Games Workshop at some point. They may that may visit those things. But again, it's like you should never know the name of Doctor Who because the mystery is more powerful.
Yeah, it's a critical component. Yeah.
Yeah.
I am glad that we do have like a surprising amount of info on even the missing dragon kids, just due to little bits about their siblings. There's actually there's a lot of really interesting stuff you're able to draw from, in that they have like an associated lore and stuff like that. But Nathan, you ready to move us on from the dragon kiddos?
Yeah, okay. So there's a quote revolving around the Monkey King where he's described differently with different ape features, different type of ape and so on. Have they not seen him in a long time? Has he just turned into a myth? Like, one of those types of little short stories that you see around your town where people will describe an event differently?
Yeah, and just for anyone listening that hasn't seen that particular image, just to kind of drive it in how crazy the descriptions get, Cathay seems to have a very large disagreement among the populace about what the Monkey King actually is. Where in the north, he's a raging gorilla that is very corn-centric, or like literally a big red angry gorilla that kills everything around him. I think in the west, he's imagined as a baboon that's always in heat and is very Slaneshi themed. And then in the east, he's this gluttonous orangutan that has boils and sores all over him, very nurglish. And in the south, they see him as this sneaky little spider monkey who whispers in people's ears and misleads them and tricks them and stuff, very Zinchian themed. So there's this huge mystery about it, and we're just kind of curious what is there any do we know any truth behind what the Monkey King is? But more importantly, because we're not digging here for potential DLC stuff, but how has Cathay developed such wild different mythologies about someone that only 200 years ago declared himself emperor?
Yeah. So, 200 years ago is a long time in a civilization.
Oh yeah, for humans especially. Yeah.
Internet, a lot of misinformation can happen in that time. So, for people that have probably already watched the Italian Spartacus thing, I'm going to repeat a lot of stuff here because it's true. But people that probably didn't watch that missed it. So a lot of that depends on kind of the death of an author concept, whether you're taking the author's intent or reading it purely as the piece of text as it is, and if you did, you could probably go, oh, the Monkey King's aligned with chaos. But I think that quote starts very specifically with an unreliable narrator clause, doesn't it?
Yes, and it comes off very heavy as like Dragon Emperor propaganda as opposed to actual stories.
Exactly. Well, he took over. It's not in the dragon's interest to have the Monkey King seen as a folk hero, is it?
Right.
Also, and kind of when I wrote it, my kind of intention is, and we've already talked about how of all the chaos gods, the most prevalent in Cathay, the one that seems to be able to get its hooks into Cathay more than the others is Qianqi, Zench. And what is Zench known for? He's, a literal god of lies. He has a demon called the Lord.
Oh yeah. He's all about obfuscating and making things messy.
Yeah. So I mean, when I wrote that, I was imagining a certain very specific agent of Zinch going round to all these different places in Cathay, and maybe he takes the form as like a wise old man who'll sit by the fire and go, "Let me tell you of the Monkey King. He is an orangutan, an obese orangutan with boils on his boils that burst upon his belly, and then, like you say, maybe he goes south and and takes a different form. Maybe this time it's a well-to-do Cathayan lady, and she tells her ladies at the tea house, "Oh, the Monkey King." takes the form as a spider monkey.
Yeah, and
so everyone...
there is a very infamous Tzeentch character who loves doing stuff like that that we all know and love.
So it serves Chaos and Tzeentch in particular. Like maybe they don't want the Monkey King to be aligned in any way. We know already there's a very antagonistic relationship between Cafe and the Monkey King in general. But we also know that the Monkey King provides monkey warriors to the Legions of Grand Cafe. So it's not always a thing. So maybe it serves Chaos and Tzeentch in particular, to make sure, that these two kind of sub-factions never permanently align.
Yeah, and that's something we kind of talked about the last time we had you on, is that the Monkey King's almost this, like, he's almost this, like, Archon the Black figure, where, like, sometimes he's helpful, sometimes he's not, and I'm sure Li Dao absolutely hates him, but, like, has to deal with him sometimes.
I'll repeat the anecdote I said the other day, because I like it. I think there's a Ranger Smith / Yogi Bear dynamic going on.
Well, and
that enemies and the Monkey Kings keep stealing all those picnic baskets, but actually, maybe they like each other.
Yeah, that seems to line up very nicely with, like, the original myths about, like, our world's mythological Monkey King, where he's kind of this necessary good guy, but man, is he he is such a pain in the ass for, like, the Celestial Court and all these people to deal with. Mm-hmm. And, like, some of them like him, though they would never admit it. Like, they would rather die than admit it.
That's not to say he's been an absolute git for Grand Cafe at times. Like you say, he did claim the throne of the Empire and installed a Clanessian, leader of Clanessian as Lord Chamberlain.
Part of me wonders if the Skaven convinced him that was a great idea. Fanning his pride a little bit. Like, hey, we don't have an emperor. The emperor's missing. Someone's got to be emperor. You should be emperor.
Be great.
Yeah.
Boss.
Come on, rats, monkeys, we're not that different. Awesome. That's very exciting stuff. I hope we'll get to see more of him in the future. Nathan, why don't you take us to the first miscellaneous question, because I know this is such a big thing for you. So
yeah, so this is something that kind of hyped me up just from reading it. It's likely just an Easter egg or something, but there was a mention of one of the minor Chaos gods, and like I am devoted. You can see the Chaos start, like, it actually shows up. You're
branded.
Yeah, I'm branded. I've got a Marcus Sinesh tattooed on me too. Oh, you turned off a little sec.
Oh, sorry. I said you've got the mark of Chaos Undivided there. I thought you were all about Slanesh.
I've got a Marcus Sinesh too, but I can't show it on stream. So seeing a little bit of a mention of a minor Chaos god, is that Dora Jar stuff? Is that just an Easter egg? Could they be potentially returning? Because obviously Age of Sigmar does mention them too.
Yeah.
So,
well, you've got 35 years of lore here to play with, it's an Easter egg, it's to bring in Games Workshop have never ruled out the fact there's only 4 Chaos Gods. It's just obviously 4 Chaos Gods are at the absolute powerhouses of that realm. But yeah, those it's like I say, you like to bring in these Easter eggs, and for 99% of people reading it, they'll just go, "Oh, that's cool." But for people like me and you, it's like, "Ooh."
Yeah, I mean that to me was something.
They're just there for that, It's not necessarily, the start of the next grand campaign.
You see, because
Easter egg.
Yeah, I mean, they've been getting new mentions from GW lore and so on. So for me, that's something special, because Chaos for me has always been like really cool, right? So that for me was like, even if it's just an Easter egg, it just makes me happy to see that name pop up again.
Yeah, I mean, I try and get as much of Warhammer, funnel it all into these games, and hopefully I've done a good job of that. People seem to think so.
I think, yeah. Well, we live in such a bizarre golden age right now, where between like what y'all are doing with Warhammer 3, Warhammer the Old World coming back in tabletop, the guys at Cubicle 7 have been very busy with 4th edition. Like there's so much lore, and it's weird almost seeing everything, because Games Workshop back in near Fantasy's original death was a lot of things were kind of falling off the edges and were basically kind of just not talked about anymore. And now not only are they coming back and being talked about, but they're being like updated to fit the modern canon and stuff. So it's like, you never know when you're going to turn a corner and run into some beloved piece of lore these days, and you're like, oh my god, it's that thing, it's back. Which, speaking of which, I have a very specific question for Andy, and it's a personal question, which is, just to put you on the spot, what can you, if you're willing to share with us, what is your favorite thing that like for Warhammer 3 or just anything you've been able to work on? What's your favorite thing that has returned to the lore, or is something new that's been added that has just made you like really giddy for you personally?
I mean, Grand Cafe is. I know it's an obvious one, but
hey, there's nothing wrong with that.
If you'd told me in, when I left Games Workshop in 2012, 10 years now, that in 10 years' time I'd be like the principal writer of the biggest Warhammer game and will have released Grand Cafe, I would have called you a goddamn liar.
Yeah.
So, the fact that Games Workshop were even willing to take that call, I remember, because I used to work, I used to live in Nottingham, because surprise, surprise, that's where Games Workshop was.
Yeah.
And I would commute down to Horsham. So for people who are not familiar with the United Kingdom, Horsham's south of London, and I would come down and spend the week here, and then go back up to see family. And I did that for a while, and I've all moved down south now. Anyway, I just remember getting off the train, thinking about maybe we should do Grand Cafe. And then going to see my boss, Ian, who I work with a lot, and he's the games designer. I've done lots of interviews with him. You've probably seen him. He's a great guy. And just saying, maybe we should do Grand Cafe. And him going, that's a good idea. And then Games Workshop even taking that call and them not laughing us out of the thing was just crazy to me.
I know, you almost expect to be like, so about Grand Cut, and they just hang up. It's just like, stop calling.
Well, people ask, I'm sure other licensees will ask those questions all the time. But them going, and then obviously at that point that was still just a pie in the sky thing. But obviously things started to escalate. People started talking to each other, and here we are with a fully fleshed out Grand Cafe and roster. Developed by Workshop, and it's a fantastic creation. And again, like I keep saying, we're only at the start of that journey. There's so much more Grand Cafe to come.
Yeah, and it's so exciting to see something that at the start of Warhammer 2 or what have you would have been one of those things where people would have been like, do you think we'll ever see this? And the answer would have been no, absolutely not. Like, no way in hell. Like, you're never gonna see that. It's just not possible. And yet here we are, which I hope we get more surprises like that in the future, of those crazy pie in the skies, like, oh, that's not possible, it's never going to happen, arriving on our doorsteps. But we'll just have to wait and see what the future holds. So Nathan, I think the next question is yours about Mr. Bellacor.
So Bellacor wishes to become a god in a very unconventional way. It doesn't really follow the rules of Ascension. So is that changing slightly? Because,
What are the rules of Ascension?
Well, generally it was formed on belief, wasn't it?
Oh, okay. I guess what Nathan is asking is, we kind of see Bellacor using what I like to call the Nagash method, where you instead of becoming a god by people worshiping you, you eat another god.
Yeah.
Is that just kind of what Bellacor's up to? Is he's kind of stealing Nagash's playbook?
Yeah, again, spoilers for people that probably haven't gone. Because at first you're meant to believe, he's just out there to bring back his physical body, which he does, and then that's not enough for him, because those who seek power always want more. That's a Bellacor quote.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Bellacor's the king of he should have stopped while he was ahead, and he would have been fine.
And yeah, I think his ambition is driven to the point that God spited him and he hates them, so he's gonna become one of them just to keep. And probably even if he reaches that ascension, then that wouldn't be good enough for him. He'd want to depose Khorne as to become the most powerful. So yeah, what I think gods traditionally spring from belief, don't they? But when mortals transcend into godhood, which, let's face it, even in the Warhammer world is very, very rare, and I don't think even in this timeline at this point, Nagash hasn't managed that yet.
Correct.
They have to do that by effectively eating, like you say, eating a god. I used to with Lawrence, who helped me write the story, him and David. I would often say to him, Bellacor's in the Forge of Souls juicing at this point.
He's getting that Urson smoothie for his pre-god workout. Yeah,
absolutely. And he's taking that god energy. So I suppose circling all the way back to your question, Nathan, is like that belief energy is still there. It's just in a bear-sized container.
So he's essentially co-opting the belief in Urson.
Yes, which again is a very Bellacor thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen throughout the history of Bellacor in general, with Shadows of Albion and so on. He's smart. He's very, very smart.
Dude's great at stealing stuff that he had nothing to do with, but he just takes advantage of it. The Albion Crisis, Mordheim, this.
Yeah. Exactly, and in the end times as well. It's all kind of on brand for Bellacor to do this stuff. So yeah, I think co-opting that faith, which has formed into a giant bear, or bear god, is very within the realms of Warhammer's internal logic. Rather than something that's so out there, it's a bit that would never happen. Okay, well, it kind of has, and Nagash certainly has done it before, or will do. And you're in the realm of chaos as well. It's not like this is happening in the mortal world where anything can go in the realm of chaos. So I think it's totally on brand and within the internal logic. What I want one of you guys is to do is ask me about how did Yuri kill a bear with a pistol, because I've seen a couple of people ask me that.
Okay, well, I'll say I think the reason we didn't ask is because I think you did a great job of explaining that it's not the bullet that hurts him; it's the renounced his faith that hurts him.
Yes, it's this paragon, and I think again the screenplay does such a good job of explaining it. Thanks to
y'all killed the prologue. That is a great story. I loved it so much. I know y'all got so much work going on, but if we could just get more of those story campaigns, I mean, just just toss a few more of those in there. You gave me a hit of something I didn't know I needed, and now I know I need it, so I need more of it.
Well, I'm glad it's going down well, but it was a lot of work and a lot of iteration to get the prologue to that place. And again, it's not just me. It does this game, right? I know I've done a lot of these now, and the last thing I want people to do is go, this game by Andy Hall. It's there's literally hundreds of people, and they're all insanely talented, and led by Ian Ian Roxburgh and Mark Sullins, who've done a great job just wrangling this whole project together. And the prologue was one of those things. Yes, I was highly involved, but there was Lawrence and David who helped me write that story, and Joy. And anyway, it's going to sound like an award speech.
Well, it might as well be. It's great.
The game it's a brilliant game, and there's hundreds of people involved to make a game like this, and we're all really proud of it.
I love that. Something which I will say, something I think is not going to be nearly as appreciated as it should, and this may not have been intentional, but it's something that I genuinely love so much, is that Yuri's story of how he falls, and like he's going through this horrible crisis. He has this big crisis of faith, and it just sort of leads up to him like having this I don't know if realization is the right word, but having this, the way his crisis evolves and to him denouncing the gods instead of finding strength in his faith. He has a lot of parallels to Archaon. Their stories end differently, and that Archaon kind of ends up as more as, I hate all the gods, including the Chaos gods, so I'm just going to kill everybody. Whereas Yuri kind of, because he has to deal with Bellacor directly, he seems to develop more of a, I'm about to die, so gods, give me power and I will work with you. Archaon didn't get to that particular point. But so I imagine it wasn't intentional, but there's a lot of really cool parallels between Yuri and Archaon.
I think that's a theme you'll find a lot in Warhammer. It's almost like there's a universal theme of the good, degrading, essentially, and that I forgot the word, but that I can use this thing for good. I will take this power, whether that's in the form of a corrupted sword or even a rank, and I will take this power and I will use it for good, and then being corrupted by it. I mean, it's a very universal fantasy theme, isn't it?
It's a universal true theme in our world. Yeah, that's just humans.
These themes, are universal because they're truths in the actual real world. Bellacor. But yes, you'll see that theme used again and again. Gav Thorpe wrote a brilliant trilogy of books about that. Archaon, obviously, is the classic case.
It's very good. It's a doozy. it's not a fun story. Oh, it's a fun story, but it's not a happy story.
No. And in 40k, you see that theme played again and again. Inquisitors thinking they can use chaos against the chaos of the dark powers, and then being lured and seduced by it.
I always find that funny.
Yeah, it happens a lot.
They get too full of themselves, think they're untouchable.
They do. But even chapter masters in Space Marines, they fall and fail to it, and not just in the Great Heresy. Even you'll occasionally lose a modern chapter to that, or a chapter master.
Well, it just makes some of the best stories. I mean, I think a lot of people in Warhammer just love characters like, we got like Archaon. There are people like, there are really like somber versions where you got like Festus the Leech Lord, this character who was like a brilliant doctor, and he was too empathetic to his patients, so he made a deal that, I'll give me the knowledge of how to cure all diseases. Nurgle was like, okay. Just totally broke his mind. And we've got like Dakala the Denied for the elves, was an elf who, she fell super hard for Slaanesh and all these other shenanigans. So it's just a really popular, and I think often wonderful theme in Warhammer, because a lot of people can relate to those characters in really interesting ways.
Yeah, and I think they can be written quite in a hackneyed way. I think it's the way, even if you know what the destination, if the journey's written well, then it's still a pleasure to go on that journey. A good example you just said with Festus, it's the way he gets corrupted is very interesting. He comes from a place of benevolence. He just wants to help his patients. And Yuri as well. He wasn't going up north because he. Any kind
he was team save Erskine all the way until the last second.
He was. Well, the last second, I'm not so sure.
The last few minutes. I'll say the last, like he was definitely like. Though I would say it would have been hilarious to see him shoot Bellacor with the pistol instead of Erskine in the kind of like brief moment when they first talked. But granted, it probably would have just gone right through him. But like, I kind of almost wish there was a. Almost wish y'all had like a what are those called? A blooper reel where he just shoots Bellacor instead. Yeah, I've the storytelling in the game really has been so marvelous. The intros are all great. Like I was shocked how believable all of the alliances are between the advisor and all of the characters and stuff. I mean, even compared to the prior two games, this game just steps it up such a notch. It's kind of wild.
Again, it's something we set out to do. Again, a kind of story group of myself, David, Lee, and Lawrence, and we wanted to take that Warhammer 2, where we escalated from Warhammer 1, and escalate again, and yeah, I think hopefully we knocked it out of the park. We'll see on Monday when all the reviews come in.
Yes, yeah, the fated the fated week is soon upon us. But it's been brilliant to watch kind of all these story threads tying together, and probably one of the most exciting things for me personally, because I was, of course, like I was praying beyond praying that Boris was going to somehow make it into the game, and that was like, there was such a theme in my community where we literally co-opted the 40k salamander chant of whatever Vulcan lives, but we had Boris lives for over a year. And the way y'all handled Boris's resurrection, I thought was so great. We're like, you kept the story. Boris still dies. He just, he's Boris. So what is death to Boris?
He was always going to be in the game, though. We did need him dead. So that Zarina wasn't just the princess. She was the Ice Queen. Because that's her most iconic role. And the law was already there. Boris is dead. So like you say, so again, it was kind of working with Games Workshop and going, resurrect Boris, and it says a testament to the relationship there that they allowed us to go through with it, and also working that into kind of its own kind of offshoot story as well. You don't just, as I'm sure you guys know, you don't just unlock him. You've got to fight a battle.
Oh yeah, you gotta earn him. You gotta earn him.
You've got to free him from that ice.
So speaking of characters, a question that's often fun to ask people at CA and during that group for me is I've had some conversations with various people about, like, if they could have any character in the game, who isn't already, who their pick would be. Like, I know CA Rich, who I believe is the head of the development team or the DLC team, he's well known for being a very big Prince of Apophis fan. Do you have kind of like do you kind of have a character that's that pie in the sky for you? Come again.
Your mic. Hellberg in the game. Yeah, he's missing.
Your mic cut out. What was it?
Oh, sorry. I was shouting because I was so excited. Kurt Hellberg. There you go.
That's a good answer. That's a good, the Reichsmarshal. That's a good answer.
He had one of the best looking miniatures from the Empire Army book, to be honest.
It's a Dave Thomas classic, Kurt Hellberg. Classic, great hash. I actually, back at the Games Workshop studio, we used to do these Arenas of Death tournaments where it'd just be like, you take a special character and you just fight with like 4 or 5 of you on, and you go. I actually got to the finals with Kurt Hellberg because of his laurels of victory, because he doubled his combat resolution.
Yeah.
That item is so great. Not to mention, like, I always found the lore behind that item hilarious, in that it's literally shadow magic to make him appear like he's like 20 feet tall to the people he's fighting.
That's pretty
They
cool.
go, "Oh, you've got 3 wounds." I go, "No, I've got 6. I've double that." They're like, "Oh." So you're rolling -4 now. Okay. Sorry, we are starting to talk like proper Warhammer players now. He rolled a 1 and I rolled a 2.
That's what it's about here. We do hobby stuff on here too.
Yeah, no, the Empire book was really good for Ape, like really good.
Yeah. So I want to get Kurt in the game because he kind of missed that Empire pass.
Yeah.
You know, he's fully painted. He leads my Empire army up there. Around there. Yeah, I'd like to get him in the game, and a certain Skaven Gracier as well. I'm sure.
I think nobody's going to stop asking for that.
Yeah, who could that possibly be?
Could that possibly be? But I'm not going to say it because that'll make.
He's got to be talking about Critalisk. He's talking about Critalisk.
It's I think they've been requesting him since Warhammer 1 got announced. You know.
Hey, he's just he's just waiting for his moment. We all know he is.
I'll say what I used to say then to the people. We're going to get everything in. It's all going to get in. Give us time.
I'm gonna quote you on that. Whenever someone asks about anything, I'm gonna say Andy Hall said it'd be in. He said everything. It'll be there eventually. Just gotta wait.
That's the key word. Eventually, not next week, next month. Eventually.
From a personal standard, like I've seen so much of Warhammer Fantasy turned into Total War, you know, which is it is. I don't think anyone, like from a fan perspective, see that and go, "Oh wow, you know, this is actually happening." It's like you guys have translated a lot, like a lot of stuff into the series.
Well, it's been in such a creative way too, because like a lot of people go, "Oh, what's it based on?" And it's like it's kind of hard to answer because it's not purely 8th edition. There's a lot of 7th edition, 6th edition, even earlier editions. Y'all got a lot of Storm of Chaos stuff that showed up when we got like the Eshin DLC, where like that Clan Eshin roster was brought to life. Morathy is in her Cult of Pleasure form, kind of from the Storm of Chaos, as opposed to her more her 8th edition form where she was a little less chaosy. You know, we went with the more chaosy version, which I think was a great decision. And I can't wait to see how she'll kind of evolve when she's brought into game 3.
Please.
I mean, I've always said that 8th edition is the baseline. You know, that's where it starts. That's our foundation. But then we will go to earlier versions as and when it's appropriate and we want to. I didn't want to lock us into 8th edition.
Yeah, well, y'all even cracked open. Y'all have done Tarmacon stuff because we got the Plague Toads.
Yeah.
We've gotten a lot of Storm of Magic beasties. Y'all have done the Monstrous Arcanum when we got Mourngulls and all this other stuff. Like, I mean, y'all have really been cracking open just about every single book.
The Plague Toad stuff was probably the most surprising for me. When we first got the list, I was like, "Oh wow!" You know?
Oh yeah, dude. I was like, that's good stuff right there. Plague Toads.
Yeah, those roster early discussions about what goes into the demon. Well, the demon rosters were very interesting, they took a lot of iteration to get there.
I would like to ask a question. And you can just say pass if you want, and it's totally fine. Like, just say pass, and we'll move on. Just pretend it never happened. But I'm curious, because this is kind of a raging debate. Do you consider the demon factions, or the chaos factions in this game, do you consider them to be demon factions, or do you consider them to be mono-god factions?
They're demon factions with a seasoning of mortals as and when required, but
okay,
all right,
they are demon factions.
All right, take that and scatter to your holes, chat.
Yeah, because
we know you're going to.
Yeah,
I can hear them. It's like someone turned on the light in the kitchen. You just see things scuttling away.
Yeah. I mean, we had those discussions about do we give every faction, every demon faction, Chaos Warriors, and we quickly came to the realization that would create a homogenization of those factions very quickly. Where I think what's happening at the moment when people are playing them, they're really enjoying the differences of those Chaos factions. But if we gave everyone Chaos Warriors from the offset, then you would have 4 slightly different coloured Chaos Warrior factions. So that was a conscious design decision.
Well, I think that was the right decision.
Yeah,
that was the right way to go.
Speaking from because obviously I played a lot of Chaos during 8th, so that was really smart from my point of view. Because for example, Slaanesh needed something to be frontline, and there was nothing frontline from the 8th edition army book, So the Marauders worked out really nicely. Which we technically already have Marauders, but these are with a Slaaneshi look. But to me, that's a Slaaneshi Marauder.
Yeah, well, and I think it's so nice that for especially those of us that were players in 8th edition fantasy, we still get that fantasy feel of that the demons are kind of their own thing. It's not quite like I love Age of Sigmar, but Age of Sigmar very much kind of fuses the mortals and the demons together, and it's more that you're Nurgle. You're not really demons, you're Nurgle. Fantasy wasn't really like that. At least not in 8th edition. Obviously, if you go far enough back, it was. But so a question, a kind of a follow-up question I had for you from our last podcast, and I doubt you'll be able to say anything, but just thought we'd ask just for fun. We know that so every once in a while you treat us to some lovely writing and little short stories or novellas that have to do with what's going on in the game to add more lore and stuff. By chance, are you working on anything for Warhammer 3? And if you are, can you give us any little hints, or what we would, if we were to pick up one of those scripts or books, what would be on the back written, the summary?
Pass.
All right. He used it. He's pleading the 5th.
Yeah. It's playing.
So, man, I don't know if I have. Nathan, you got anything?
Yeah, well, I want to ask regarding the 5 Chaos factions, because obviously, well, assumedly, you've been playing, right?
Yes,
Which?
Well, he's just what? It's a video game.
No, because obviously it's just one of those things. How if you can give a favorite, there's 5 factions for Chaos. We've got Undivided, we've got Tzeentch, and so on. Which one has been your favorite of the Chaos factions, and why is it Slaanesh?
Well, hold on. Whoa.
Sorry.
Well, interestingly, it is Slaanesh.
Good man.
Because Nakari is another kind of, another one of those little proud moments of getting Nakari in there and getting him in that form as well. Again, that was pleasant negotiations with Games Workshop to get kind of a modern looking Nakari. So I was very kind of enamored.
I like getting to see Kugoth and Nakari get actual forms is so amazing. I want them both as a tabletop mini so bad. There is nothing like them. Especially Nakari is so that y'all did such a brilliant job of it's obviously Nakari is very heavily based on his, I think it's the 6th edition art when he's fighting an Aryan from the High Elf book, but his model was actually updated to also fit the newer themes where he's kind of got the ripped tights and all that stuff. And it's just it's so well done. It is so well done.
The artists, they knocked it out of the park. Kind of led by Badge. They really did some great stuff there. And the reference I gave for Nakari was that picture. I was like, make him look like a modern keeper of secrets.
Yeah.
And they absolutely knocked it out of the park. But I've certainly got so I think Slanesh, and I like the speed of it as well. It's a great army if you want to take like someone that's probably not really good at battles. Using the multiplayer function, bring them into the game, and you just hand them a couple of hellflayers and go nuts. And they're so easy to micro in that respect. So Slanesh is great for that.
Yeah.
I mean, Khorne is good as well. And Khorne came about because he wasn't working for quite a while. It took a lot of kind of iteration and design. With Jim and Ian, a kind of lead battle designer, and Ian, the game director, to get that to click. And then we kind of hit that note of, he summons blood host, he creates skulls, and Khorne likes that, and so I think I phrased it as maybe we get to that point, and it's almost like Khorne sending out his fleshhound armies to kind of aid you, and for a while those blood host armies were purely fleshhounds.
Oh my gosh.
And I didn't quite, again, that wasn't quite right. So then they came to the blood host armies. But I think when that clicked, and we go, Khorne is actually really fun now. So that felt like really kind of pleasing to kind of nail Khorne, because Khorne could be, as you probably no subtlety as Khorne. It could be a very blunt weapon, and blunt weapons can be a pain to use and a bit boring if you don't look out. So the fact that Khorne is as good as he is, it feels really pleasing actually. And I think all the cast factions have turned out really well, and comes to like Mark Sinclair, who really with Present really championed the changing of the wave system as well, which, as you can probably see, is such a multifaceted system with all these things you can do, but you feel you can feel very Zentian using that. So yeah, it feels like we nailed that, and with Nurgle, with the cyclical buildings, and again, Nurgle was something I had in my mind. I was like, I want to be able to create my diseases, and it should be a picture of a big cauldron, and that was kind of day one, and that design kind of survived 3 years of iteration and George, a designer for campaign, he absolutely nailed that. And George works on the multiplayer as well, so you've got him and John Virtual to thank for multiplayer as well. Again, I'm sorry to read names and it sounds like an award speech. I'm sorry, but
no, you're all good. You're all good. I love all these mechanics, and it's so funny watching them and seeing really cool parallels too of like the Khorne centric fact. Like we had Taurix the Brass Bull brought to life towards the end of Warhammer 2, and what's great is that his mechanic is very similar to Scarbrand's in that they're both cornate, so you would expect that. Now they have different methods on how they do it, and it has a very different feel, where Taurix is more of an unstoppable juggernaut and Scarbrand's more of an unleashing just a tide of slaughter. But it's
a very subtle difference, but it feels right, and kudos to our designers for absolutely kind of hammering that and nailing it.
And like I'll admit, like I'm one of those super annoying people, I'm sure, for the designers, where I'm sitting there looking at like that Nurgle mechanic and going, oh, I'd love that in my Clan Pestilence campaign. Like seeing all that Slanesh stuff and being like, oh, I'd love that in my Morothy campaign. Like, I need some more parallels.
Well, it's like with the Godslayer, I knew as soon as we unleashed that, everyone would go, I want that in that campaign.
Oh yeah, it's like, can I get a fully customizable character in every race?
Everyone's been asking for that now, yeah.
Yes, we'd love it too, but the amount of work to get to that place with the Demon Prince.
Like I don't expect that mechanic to leave him, because good lord, that's so much work. It's great though. It's great.
Yeah.
Listen. I love my Barbie doll, Demon Prince. It's great.
Yeah.
Pulling off arms, putting on new ones.
It's very different, and I must say, because I used the perfect example when I streamed him a few days ago. Because obviously, like we're all used as tabletop guys. That is us playing tabletop, but in Total War, because it's kit bashing, right? So I've done that too. You know, I've got a Demon Prince, which is probably not going to show up, but he's got some Rotfly wings and so on. And he's not showing up.
Well, he's like vaguely green, so your computer's like he's the green screen, right? That's the green screen.
But it's the thing is like that's why I was telling people, it's like this should, like, in my personal opinion, this should be unique anyway, because it's something that we used to spend hours with green stuff and so on. You know, like I can only imagine the amount of work that turning that into a computer thing like has to take. Because what did you guys say? It was like 2 billion different types of combinations and so on.
Well, the maths is, and it sounds such a stupid number. I don't even like saying it because it just sounds like it's a lie. 500 billion combinations.
Good God! Wow,
man, it's one of those things where like it's like how you learn that you really don't need that many digits to make a unique number that no one could ever guess, because like it doesn't take that, and there's so many options for the Demon Prince that you can customize.
Manipulation, you know, because you think, you know, all those bits that can't be 500, but you know, but if you do one part with that part, that's one, but now I've got to change that part, so that's two, and then you've got to do it. You do it all along with just that one part, and yeah, it extrapolates out and out and out and out. But yeah, even now, I don't like saying that number because it sounds so comically bad. It's not.
Yeah,
the maths is there.
It's just how numbers work. They're dumb, but it's how it works.
Exactly. But I mean, again, he was an interesting concept because, and I've said this in a few interviews. But you know, we have these pillars of Total War, and one of them is authenticity, and it's kind of one of the reasons I came on board in the first place. And one of the keys is we try and make something as much like the model or the reference it's based on as possible. Karl Franz has to look as close to Games Workshop's interpretation of Karl Franz as possible. But the Demon Prince, we knew, and through the descriptions of the army books, that there is uncountable variances of the Demon Prince. And so we knew that was an in, and that's kind of what got us firing on that. It's like, well, how do we represent that? Because obviously Games Workshop has one kit, and so all Demon Princes kind of look like that. And again, Games Workshop were really very generous with us with that. And then because when we kind of said we want to do kind of this customizable Demon Prince, and I guess our first thought was that they'd go, well, no, just make it look like the model, like you've done with everything out. Like your Hell Pit Abomination has to look like the Hell Pit Abomination. And they're right, as long as the first time the player sees it, it does look like the plastic Demon Prince kit. After that, go nuts.
Yeah, which is, I mean, that's the Demon Prince experience, is that if you're new to the hobby, maybe you would buy that kit and just build it as is, but as you get more experience, you'd be like, okay, I'm going to kit bash this, or I'm going to use green stuff and like mold on all these weird things. Like
it's very generous to allow you to do that, which is great, because those wings, you could, sub them out for dragon wings, or like you just showed, Nathan, or tried to show. But and so we kind of went into that, and it was a very, very expensive asset for the game.
Yeah,
and
worth it. Absolutely worth it.
Is it worth it? And we were like, no, it is. It is worth it. It's going to be cool. And well, I guess the game's not released yet, so the proof is still not quite there yet, but I'm hoping, and I think from the reception things, that people will like it. And again, I think it's something that hopefully will bring in these kind of new players that we want to see, because it makes a stronger game, stronger brand,
Yeah.
And that's kind of why we tied the story to the Demon Prince. So, new players will get that through line, hopefully. They'll boot up the game, they'll get asked if they're new to Total War, and if they say yes, they'll play through Yuri's journey. And then, when you finish that prologue, hopefully you'll feel empowered, and hopefully then the next logical step is, well, what's your next campaign? I'll go, well, I'm going to get revenge, like Yuri wants, and then play the Demon Prince, and then you discover that the Demon Prince is a cool kind of customizational Lego Demon Prince, and you get to do stuff, and hopefully we can take those guys on that journey, and they'll enjoy Total War. And there's more Total War players in the world is just better for the world in general.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Yeah. I mean, like the story is presenting itself to be quite good. It's I'd say this is the most narrative style Total War we've seen so far, maybe.
Certainly up there.
Yeah.
I think that's safe to say, but we were very conscious, and this was led by a game director, but the story couldn't get in the way of the gameplay. You still had to have the sandbox Total War experience of building your empire in the way that you want.
Yeah.
And so when we was designing the story, and the story had to work no matter whether you were Scarbrand or whether you were Kislev. So again, that's why Bellacor kind of shouted out as the perfect kind of villain of the piece. I know there's a few players out there who go, well, why didn't you just make Bellacor a legendary lord? Well, he needed to be the villain because we needed something for everyone to fight against.
Yeah.
To make the campaign work, and the narrative makes the campaign mechanics work. So again, if you reverse engineer it, you go back to like, right, we're going to do the Chaos Realms. So we want players to go into the Chaos Realms and do these cool things in the Chaos Realms.
Yeah.
So how do we do that? So how do we justify, people? How do we justify Scarbrand and at the same time a Cafe and Dragon going to the Chaos Realms, and that still being their singular objective? Right, well, we need a villain that everyone can rail against. So who in Warhammer is a villain that everyone can rail against? Bellacor.
Yeah.
Wouldn't the answer be, who does everyone hate the most?
Yeah, well, and it works out well, especially with the game kind of taking place before Warhammer 1, because it's like, what was Bellacor up to before he had to go crown Archaon? Which, man, what a rough day for him. He gets the crap kicked out of him on the verge of godhood, and then he's got to go crown Archaon.
Yeah. I did like the
Chaos Gods would revel in that, wouldn't
they'd be like, that's great. This is money.
Yeah.
So
what he's up to all along the way. But he'll be like, yeah, go on, you can try it.
Yeah.
I had one last question, and then I forgot. Nathan, we're pretty much coming up on our time. Do you have any last question for Mr. Hall?
Yeah. So how did it come with the whole going to the Chaos Realms and so on? Because like from a lore perspective, going there is really dangerous, right? And it is quite dangerous. Like going through Nurgle's thing, or I'll be very, very honest with you, I've never wanted to because I don't like puzzles, and the Zinchian one, I wanted to punch right through my screen. Like I'm not a puzzle guy. I'm very caught in.
The Zinch one is very Zinchy. It's very Zinchy.
It's done lore
style.
Like I'm caught in at heart, right?
Well, we wanted to take players to places they've never been before, and there's only so many iterations of the Warhammer World map you can do, and the Realm of Chaos was that place. And we could have just copy and pasted and brought a game out two years ago, but that's not pushing the quality bar that we wanted to do. We wanted to create a game that impresses everyone, and taking players into the realm of chaos was kind of untrodden ground, and so we wanted to take players there, but then we knew if we did, we couldn't just play Total War in those zones. There had to be. It had to feel different. It had to feel like the law for a start, and also, there are tales of mortals going into the Chaos Realms and actually coming out. So it's not unprecedented. It's absolutely rare, and those people, when they come out, they are forever changed. And again, we try to bring that in with those chaos traits that really screw you over if you let them fester on you.
I forgot it once, and I just let it go constantly.
They can be brutal. They can be very brutal.
Absolutely, and that was, again, managing that was always part of what we wanted to do. We wanted people we didn't want them to go in and it feel like they're just having a Sunday walk in the hills.
Yeah.
It had to feel like you've been touched by chaos by going in there.
Yeah, I know. For me, it's a genuine dream come true of invading the realm of chaos and taking the fight to the gods themselves is something I always wanted to see happen. Yeah, that was kind of one of those potential possibilities in fantasy that I always loved so much as a possible scenario, is a force of order or even destruction, managing to fight its way and actually punch the gods in the face. I really, really hope that we get to see the realms of chaos in when we eventually get the combined map, because man, I want to take the lizardmen in there so bad and just start wrecking stuff.
I mean, if you're doing a chaos focused game, you have to have you got to have the realm of chaos. You can't just have the demons survive in the vacuum of the mortal.
Right. It'd be boring.
World.
Very boring.
Yeah, that's them. They are literally a fish out of water. But again, going back to the narrative reasons, we also had to have a reason why. Because in theory, a demon going into the chaos realm should be like, opening the front door. It should be that easy for them. So we had to create narrative reasons. So the narrative had a lot of heavy lifting to do in this campaign. It had to justify why is Kislev, who's been the bulwark against chaos for the last 2,000 years, why are they suddenly wanting to go into the chaos realm? Why would you want to, in our context, why would you willingly want to go into hell? And
I mean,
answer,
the realm of Slanesh sounds fun, right?
You see Hellraiser?
Yeah, maybe on a very surface level. Surface level.
On the surface level, yeah.
That's definitely one of those places where you go, and when you arrive, you go, I didn't think this through.
Oh no, I did. I thought it through.
But if you're in a world where gods are not something that may or may not exist, but indisputably exist, and you learn that your god, the one that holds your soul, your faith together, is not only in the chaos realm, but is in very real danger of dying, then maybe, just maybe, that will justify and motivate you to not just be the defender of the old world, but to step willingly into the chaos realm and go into this mad place to try and rescue them. And at the same time, it's also for all the demons, the fact that the bear god roared and created this kind of barrier helps us justify why the demon guys can't just zip in and out the chaos realms at will.
Yeah, that works great.
Think of it like a harbour in a storm. You can't just go into the harbour when the waters are roiling.
Yep.
So the narrative did a lot of stuff to kind of help us with the campaign mechanics. So that's if you reverse engineer it back and why things are the way it is. Why Bellacor is the villain. Why are there the chaos rifts? Why is there a dying god? So yeah, there you go. A bit of behind the scenes about why things are like they are.
Well, thank you so very much. That's pretty much our time. So we know you've got to get off to do some stuff. But before we go, is there anything people should be out on the lookout for? And if so, where should they be kind of looking for more Andy Hall goodness or updates coming in the future?
Okay, well, keep an eye. If you've signed up to Total War, keep an eye on early in the week. There may be a little surprise dropping.
I like surprise.
Otherwise, you know, get ready because Warhammer 3's out.
I know it's finally here.
Yeah, and I hope everyone plays it and enjoys it. And you know, also, I've done a lot of these now, but it's not just me. There are hundreds of people at Creative Assembly who are passionate about this game, and yeah.
Awesome. And thank you again so much for joining us, and thanks to Total War for sponsoring this podcast. That was very generous of them, and we were happy to be here on their official channel doing all this stuff. If you missed any of the podcasts, it will be available on me and Nathan's channel shortly. Nathan, anything you want people to know about coming up for you for later today or later this week, real quick before we go?
No, just the usual Total War Warhammer free content on the channel pretty much every day until release. And soon I can sleep.
Yeah, really? I know. Game comes out for everyone. For us, it's like, finally I could rest.
Yeah, holiday on the horizon, I think.
Yeah, every content creator and every person working at CA needs to take like a month sabbatical. All right, and yeah, I will also be streaming Total War Warhammer 3 later today after I get lunch and everything. So thanks everyone so much for watching. We appreciate you all joining us, and I'm sure there's more Total War stuff coming up. I believe the big tournament is tomorrow with all the content creators, and Creative Assembly has a little info thing they made that has a schedule to everything going on. So that's it for us. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.